3 weeks into their obsession with human cooking shows, Science Officer NEM 445 made an announcement that would change everything for the Vortic crew. "I believe I can modify our molecular assemblers to replicate human food preparation techniques," he declared during the daily briefing. Commander Zix 471 looked up from his personal screen, where he had been watching Bobby Martinez demonstrate tamale making for the 50th time. "Explain." "The humans achieve chemical transformations through controlled application of heat, pressure, and time," NEM 445 continued. "Our assemblers can be programmed to simulate these processes rather than simply constructing precise molecular structures." "Captain," Vel 339 frowned, "that would be highly inefficient. Our current nutrition system provides exact nutritional requirements in optimal form." "But it provides no pleasure," replied NEM 445. "The humans have shown us that pleasure may be as important as nutrition." The bridge fell silent. The word pleasure had become common in their conversations, but the idea of actively seeking it was still revolutionary for the Vortic. "What would this modification require?" asked Zix 471. "I would need to reprogram the assembler's control systems and add thermal regulation capabilities," NEM 445 explained. "The ship's main computer would need to store the chemical composition data for human food ingredients." Cree 892 looked up from her communication station. "I have been documenting the ingredient list from over 800 human recipes. The database is already prepared." "You want to actually create human food?" asked Navigator Quinn 667. "I want to understand their experience," replied NEM 445. "The only way to truly comprehend what we are observing is to experience it ourselves." Captain Vel 339 considered this proposal. It went against every principle of Vortic society. Their species had eliminated inefficiency centuries ago. The idea of spending resources on pleasure rather than necessity was almost unthinkable. "The experiment would be limited in scope," she said finally. "One test preparation only." "Agreed," said NEM 445, already moving toward the ship's laboratory section. The modifications took 6 hours. NEM 445 worked steadily, reprogramming the molecular assembler's basic functions. Instead of precise atomic construction, the device would now simulate the crude heating and mixing techniques used by humans. Meanwhile, the rest of the crew gathered around the laboratory, watching through the transparent walls as NEM 445 worked. They had chosen Lisa Rodriguez's brownie recipe for their first experiment. The preparation seemed simple enough, and the humans' obvious pleasure when eating the final product had been particularly compelling. "Initiating material synthesis," announced NEM 445 as he activated the modified assembler. The machine hummed quietly as it created the basic ingredients. Cocoa powder, flour, sugar, eggs, and butter materialized in separate containers. The crew watched in fascination as familiar chemical compounds took on the forms they had seen in human cooking shows. "The visual appearance matches the human examples," observed Quinn 667. "Now comes the critical part," said NEM 445. "The humans combine these ingredients in specific proportions and sequences." Following Lisa Rodriguez's instructions exactly, NEM 445 mixed the ingredients together. The transformation was remarkable. Individual substances combined to create something entirely new. The mixture changed color and texture, becoming smooth and dark brown. "The chemical reaction is already beginning," he reported. "I can detect the formation of new molecular bonds." "The humans called this batter," added Cree 892, who had memorized Lisa Rodriguez's exact words. NEM 445 placed the mixture in a rectangular container and inserted it into the assembler's newly installed thermal chamber. "The heating process would take 30 minutes according to the human recipe. Now we wait," he said. The crew remained in the laboratory, watching the thermal chamber's display. They could see the mixture slowly changing as heat transformed its molecular structure. Sweet aromas began to fill the air, though the Vorthic could not detect them with their limited sensory capabilities. Energy readings show complex chemical activity, reported NEM 445. The heating process is creating hundreds of new compounds. Just as the humans described, noted Zix 471. They called it baking. When the timer indicated completion, NEM 445 carefully removed the container from the thermal chamber. The transformation was dramatic. The liquid mixture had become a solid, dark brown creation that looked exactly like Lisa Rodriguez's brownies. Visual match is 97%. Confirmed Quinn 667. But we cannot experience what the humans call taste. Observe Vel 339. Our species lacks the necessary sensory organs. NEM 445 have been anticipating this problem. I have been researching human biology. Their taste experience requires specialized sensory receptors and neural pathways. However, our medical bay contains biotechnology that could temporarily modify our physiology. The suggestion was shocking. Vorthic medicine was used only for repair and maintenance. The idea of deliberately altering their biology for experimental purposes was unprecedented. You want to modify our sensory systems? Asked Zix 471, temporarily. Emphasized NEM 445. The modifications will be reversed after the experiment. This is extremely dangerous, warned Vel 339. We could be damaging our neural systems permanently. The humans experience taste safely, replied NEM 445. Their biology provides a template for safe implementation. After long discussion, the crew agreed to allow NEM 445 to modify one volunteer for the experiment. Commander Zix 471 stepped forward. I will undergo the modification, he declared. The biotechnology process took 2 hours. NEM 445 used the ship's advanced medical systems to temporarily grow taste receptors in Zix 471's mouth and create neural pathways to process the sensory information. The modifications were based on detailed scans of human biology obtained from their long-range sensors. The modifications are complete, announced NEM 445. Commander, you now possess the ability to experience what humans call taste. ZYX471 felt strange. His mouth tingled with new sensations. Even breathing felt different as air moved across his newly created sensory organs. The experience is unusual, he reported. I can detect chemical variations in the ship's atmosphere that I never noticed before. Now for the test, said NEM 445, offering a small piece of the synthesized brownie. The crew watched in tense silence as Zix 471 took the brown square and examined it carefully. It looked exactly like the human creation they had observed so many times. Here goes, he said, placing the brownie in his mouth. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Zix 471's eyes widened as completely new sensations flooded his consciousness. Sweet, rich flavors exploded across his taste receptors. The texture was soft and dense, with a slight grittiness that somehow enhanced the experience. By the void, he whispered, his voice filled with wonder. The crew leaned forward anxiously. What are you experiencing? Asked VEL-339.ZYX-471 chewed slowly, his expression changing with each moment. It's incredible, he said finally. The sweetness is intense, but there are other flavors underneath. Complex chemical signatures that create ... pleasure. He swallowed and immediately reached for another piece. The humans were right. This creates actual pleasure. Physical, measurable pleasure. Describe the sensation, requested NEM 445. It's unlike anything we have ever experienced, Zix 471 reported. The sweetness triggers positive neural responses. I find myself wanting more. The crew watched in amazement as their commander consumed the entire brownie, his expression showing obvious satisfaction with each bite. The pleasure response is consistent with human observations, noted Cree 892. You appear to be experiencing the same positive reactions we have witnessed. More than that, replied Zix471. I understand now why the humans invest so much time and effort in food preparation. This experience is meaningful. Meaningful how? Asked Coin 667. It creates a connection between the physical and emotional, Zix471 explained. The act of consumption becomes more than mere nutrition. It becomes a source of joy. The implications were staggering. The crew had discovered that pleasure was not just a human weakness or inefficiency. It was a legitimate form of consciousness enhancement. We need to study this further, declared Vel 339. If pleasure can enhance consciousness, then we have been neglecting an important aspect of existence. I want to try the modification as well, announced Cree 892. And I, added Quinn 667. All of us, concluded Nem 445. We need to understand this phenomenon completely. Over the following days, each crew member underwent the biotechnology modification. One by one, they experienced their first taste of human cuisine. Each reaction was similar to Zix471's wonder, pleasure, and an immediate desire for more. They began working through Create 92's database of human recipes, creating dozens of different foods. They made Lisa Rodriguez's pasta dishes, Bobby Martinez's tacos, Tony Chun's stir-fries, and Julia Henderson's comfort foods. Each new flavor was a revelation. Sweet foods triggered intense pleasure responses. Salty foods created different, but equally satisfying sensations. Spicy foods produce complex reactions that combine pleasure with mild discomfort in ways that somehow enhance the overall experience. Humans have developed thousands of different flavor combinations. Observe Nem 445. Each one creates unique sensory experiences. 2 weeks have passed since the Vorthik crew first discovered the human transmissions. What began as scientific observation had transformed into something much deeper. The aliens were no longer just watching the cooking shows. They were studying them like sacred text. Communications Officer Cree 892 had created detailed files on over 300 human cooking personalities. She knew their names, their specialties, and their preferred techniques. Her favorite was still Tony Chun, whose rapid cooking style she found mesmerizing. Tony Chun uses 17 different spices in his signature dish, she reported to Commander Zix471. Each one serves a specific purpose in creating what he calls layers of flavor. The commander nodded thoughtfully. He had been learning human language patterns by listening to cooking shows for hours each day. His pronunciation was still awkward, but he could understand most of what the humans said. The humans appeared to have developed a complex social structure around food preparation, Zix471 observed. They gather in groups to consume prepared substances together. This social aspect had become particularly fascinating to the crew. They watched shows where families gathered around tables to eat together, talking and laughing throughout the consumption process. This was completely foreign to Vorthik culture, where nutrition was consumed individually through feeding tubes. Navigator Quinn 667 had become obsessed with a human called Martha Stewart, who demonstrated elaborate table arrangements and decoration techniques. The precision and attention to detail reminded him of navigation calculations, but the purpose was purely aesthetic. Look at this, Quinn 667 said, pointing to his screen. Martha Stewart is folding cloth into complex geometric shapes to place beside the food. She calls them napkins and says they are essential for proper dining. The humans assign importance to visual presentation. Observe Science Officer Nem 445. They believe that attractive arrangements enhance the consumption experience. Nem 445 had been studying the chemistry behind human cooking for days. He was amazed by the complexity of the chemical reactions that occurred during food preparation. The humans achieved remarkable molecular transformations using simple heat and pressure. The Maillard reaction, he said, using the human term he had. Learn it. When proteins and sugars are heated together, they create hundreds of new chemical compounds. The humans call this browning and consider it essential for flavor development. Captain Vel 339 had initially tried to maintain discipline among her crew, but she found herself equally captivated by the human broadcasts. She had developed a particular interest in holiday cooking shows where humans prepared elaborate meals for large groups. The humans coordinate their consumption activities with seasonal cycles, she reported. They prepare specific foods for particular times of year, creating what they call traditions. The concept of tradition was alien to the Vortic. Their society valued efficiency and adaptability. The idea of repeating activities simply because they had been done before seemed illogical, yet the humans clearly found great meaning in these repetitive practices. During their Thanksgiving celebration, humans prepare multiple dishes simultaneously. Vel 339 continued. The process requires days of planning and coordination. Yet they appear to consider this effort pleasurable rather than burdensome. The crew had begun to notice patterns in human behavior that extended far beyond food preparation. They observed that humans often smiled when cooking, that they sang while working, and that they frequently shared their food with others. The humans displayed positive emotions during food preparation. Noted Cree 892. They appeared to derive satisfaction from the process itself, not just the final consumption. This observation led to a breakthrough in their understanding. The humans were not just preparing nutrition, they were creating experiences. The act of cooking was as important as the act of eating. It's a form of art, declared Nem 445. The humans have elevated basic survival activities to creative expression. The crew began to see evidence of this everywhere. They watched humans carefully arrange food on plates, creating colorful patterns and attractive presentations. They saw chefs taste their creations repeatedly, adjusting ingredients until they achieved desired results. The humans call this seasoning to taste. Explain Quinn 667. They make constant small adjustments based on their sensory feedback. The idea of using personal sensation to guide decision-making was revolutionary to the Vortic. Their society relied on precise measurements and calculations for everything. The human approach seemed chaotic, yet it consistently produced results that created obvious pleasure. Perhaps there is wisdom in their imprecision, suggested Zix 471. They allow for individual variation and personal preference. The crew had also begun to notice the emotional responses humans displayed when eating. They watched people close their eyes in pleasure, make satisfied sounds, and even cry when tasting particularly meaningful foods. The human called Lisa Rodriguez prepared something called comfort food, reported Cree 892. She explained that certain foods trigger positive memories and emotional responses. This concept of food creating emotional reactions fascinated the aliens. They had observed humans eating simple dishes and displaying intense satisfaction, not because the food was nutritionally superior, but because it reminded them of pleasant experiences. The humans associate specific foods with positive memories. Noted Vel 339. They use consumption to recreate emotional states. The crew began to understand that human cooking was not just about nutrition or even pleasure. It was about connection to memories, to other people, to cultural identity. They watched shows where humans prepared foods from their ancestral cultures, maintaining traditions passed down through generations. They saw immigrants teaching their children to cook traditional dishes, preserving cultural knowledge through food preparation. The humans use food to maintain social bonds, observed Nem 445. Shared meals create group cohesion. This insight led to another realization. The humans they were watching were not just preparing food, they were teaching. The cooking shows were a form of cultural transmission, spreading knowledge and traditions across vast distances. Bobby Martinez explains that his recipes come from his grandmother, reported Zix 471. He is preserving and sharing family knowledge through these transmissions. The crew began to see the cooking shows as a form of cultural archive. Thousands of humans were documenting their food traditions, creating a vast library of culinary knowledge that could be accessed by anyone. "This is remarkable," said Vel 339. "The humans are creating a permanent record of their cultural practices." The more they learned about human culture through cooking shows, the more the crew began to question their own society's values. The humans seemed to find joy in simple activities that the Vorthik considered mundane. "The humans sing while they cook," observed Cree 892. "They treat food preparation as a celebration rather than a chore. They invite others to join them in consumption," added Quinn 667. "They share their creations freely. They experiment with new combinations," noted Nem 445. "They are not afraid to fail." These observations painted a picture of a species that had found ways to extract pleasure and meaning from basic survival activities. The humans had transformed necessity into art, routine into ritual, and consumption into celebration. "Perhaps we have been too focused on efficiency," suggested Zix 471. "The humans may have discovered something important about the nature of consciousness." The crew had begun to notice that their own behavior was changing. They found themselves looking forward to new cooking shows, developing preferences for certain human personalities, and even attempting to understand human humor and cultural references. "I enjoy watching Julia Henderson prepare her southern dishes," admitted Vel 339. "Her enthusiasm is infectious." The word enjoy had not been part of Vorthik vocabulary before they discovered the human transmissions. Now it appeared regularly in their conversations. "The humans have taught us that consumption can be more than mere nutrition," concluded Nem 445. "They have shown us that pleasure and meaning can be found in the most basic activities." As the crew continued their cultural immersion, they began to realize that they were not just observing humans, they were learning from them. The cooking shows were changing their understanding of what it meant to be conscious, to be alive, to find meaning in existence. "We should attempt to replicate their techniques," suggested Cree 892. "Perhaps we can understand their experience by copying their methods. That would require significant modifications to our ship systems," warned them 445. "Then we make the modifications," declared Zix 471. "This discovery is too important to ignore." The crew had no idea that their fascination with human cuisine was about to lead them down a path that would change not just their mission, but their very nature as a species. They were about to discover that some knowledge could only be gained through direct experience. Their journey into the world of human cooking was just beginning. 3 days had passed since the Vorthik crew first discovered the strange transmissions from the blue planet. Commander Zix 471 had ordered continuous monitoring of the signals. But what started as scientific curiosity was becoming something else entirely. Cree 892 had not left her communication station in 18 hours. Her black eyes were fixed on the screen, watching a creature called Tony Chun demonstrate something called stir-frying in a large metal pan. The rapid movements of his cooking tools created bursts of steam and sizzling sounds that seemed to entrance her. "The creature is moving the food objects at high speed," she reported to no one in particular. "The heat application appears to be very precise." Commander Zix 471 approached her station. "Officer Cree 892, you were supposed to be relieved 6 hours ago." "I cannot leave now, Commander," she said without looking away from the screen. "This Tony Chun is about to demonstrate something called wok hei. According to the transmission, it is a special flavor that can only be achieved through specific heating techniques." The word flavor had become common among the crew, though. None of them truly understood what it meant. They had learned it from watching hundreds of hours of these consumption rituals. "You need rest," Zix 471 said firmly. "But Commander, look at this." Cree 892 pointed to the screen. Tony Chun had just tasted his creation, and his entire face changed. His eyes widened, and he nodded rapidly. "The positive response is extremely strong. The creature appears to be experiencing intense satisfaction." Zix 471 found himself drawn to the screen, despite his intentions. Tony Chun was now explaining how the high heat had created what he called complex flavors in the food. The commander did not understand these concepts, but the humans obvious. Joy was somehow compelling. Very well. Zix 471 said finally, "Continue monitoring, but I want detailed reports on these consumption patterns." At the navigation station, Quinn 667 was supposed to be plotting their course to the next survey sector. Instead, he was watching his own screen, which showed a female human called Martha Stewart preparing something called holiday cookies. The transmission was old, but the Vortic had discovered that humans had been sending these signals into space for many years. "Look at the precision," Quinn 667 muttered to himself. "She measures each ingredient exactly. The process requires mathematical accuracy." Martha Stewart was mixing white powder with yellow substances in a large bowl. She explained each step carefully, as if teaching others how to perform the ritual. This teaching aspect fascinated the aliens. Among the Vortic, knowledge was transferred through direct neural download. The idea of learning through observation was primitive but intriguing. "The creature is now shaping the mixture with her hands," Quinn 667 reported. "She appears to be creating specific geometric forms." Science Officer Nem 445 looked up from his own station. "I have been analyzing the chemical changes that occur during these heating processes. The humans appear to be causing controlled molecular breakdown in organic compounds. For what purpose?" asked Zix 471. "Unknown. But the humans consistently display positive responses to consuming the altered compounds. There must be some benefit. We do not understand." Nem 445 returned to his screen, which showed a human called Lisa Rodriguez explaining something called caramelization. She was heating white crystalline substances until they turned golden brown and began to bubble. "The temperature must be precisely controlled," Lisa Rodriguez said, stirring the bubbling substance. "Too hot and it burns, too cool and it won't develop the right flavor." "The precision required is remarkable," observed Nem 445. "These humans have developed sophisticated understanding of thermodynamics, but they apply it to consumption rather than technology." Captain Vel 339 entered the bridge after her rest period. She immediately noticed that all her officers were focused on the human transmissions rather than their assigned duties. "Report," she said sharply. "The human consumption rituals are far more complex than we initially observed," replied Zix 471. "They appear to have developed an entire science around the transformation of organic compounds." Vel 339 moved to the main screen, which currently showed a human called Bobby Martinez from the first transmission they had intercepted. He was now preparing something called homemade pasta, using a mechanical device that flattened and shaped a yellow substance. "The creature is using tools to modify the physical structure of the food substance," reported Create 192. "The process appears to require significant skill and practice." Vel 339 watched as Bobby Martinez fed long strips of the yellow substance into bubbling water. After a short time, he removed them and combined them with a red sauce that contained green plant matter. "Fascinating," she said despite herself. "The creature has created a complex chemical mixture." Bobby Martinez took a portion of the mixture with a prong tool and placed it in his mouth. His reaction was immediate and dramatic. He closed his eyes and made soft sounds of pleasure. "That's perfection," Bobby Martinez said. "The pasta is al dente, and the sauce has that perfect balance of sweet and savory. The positive response is consistent across all subjects," noted Nem 445. "Every human we have observed displays similar reactions when consuming these prepared substances." Captain Vel 339 meant to order her crew back to their duties, but found herself unable to look away from the screen. There was something captivating about the human's obvious joy. Among the Vortic, such displays of emotion were considered inefficient and disruptive. "Continue monitoring," she heard herself say, "but maintain your other duties as well." She moved to her command chair, But instead of reviewing navigation reports, she activated her personal screen and began scanning through the human transmissions. She found one showing a human called Julia Henderson preparing something called apple pie. The process was incredibly complex. Julia Henderson combined multiple types of plant matter, added white crystalline substances, and encased the entire mixture in a thin layer of processed grain. Then she placed it in a heated chamber for an extended period. The time investment is significant, Vel 339 observed. This preparation requires over 2 hours of active work. Yet the humans appear to consider it worthwhile, added Zix 471, who was now watching over her shoulder. The creature seems to anticipate the final result with great enthusiasm. When Julia Henderson removed the finished creation from the heated chamber, the entire bridge crew gathered around the screen. The golden brown surface was perfectly shaped, and steam rose from small vents in the top. "Beautiful, Julia Henderson." Sahir, her voice filled with pride. "Just look at that color." She cut into the creation, revealing layers of cooked plant matter inside. The sweet aroma filled her kitchen, and she breathed deeply with obvious pleasure. The consumption experience involves multiple senses, observed NEM 445. Visual appearance, thermal radiation, gas emissions, and finally taste. Julia Henderson took a portion of the creation and consumed it. Her reaction was even stronger than they had seen before. She closed her eyes and made a low sound of satisfaction. "Incredible," she said. "The apples are perfectly tender, and the spices are just right." The pleasure response appears to be proportional to the complexity of the preparation, noted Quinn 667. The more effort invested, the stronger the positive reaction. Captain Vel 339 found this observation deeply troubling. Vortex Society was built on efficiency. The idea of investing significant time and effort for pleasure rather than practical benefit challenged their fundamental beliefs. "Perhaps we should report this to the Galactic Council," she suggested. "Not yet," replied Zix 471. "We need to understand more. These humans may have discovered something important about consciousness and satisfaction." "You think their consumption rituals serve a purpose beyond nutrition?" asked the Vel 339. "I believe they have found a way to derive joy from basic survival activities," Zix 471 said. "This could be a significant evolutionary advantage." Over the following hours, the crew discovered that the human transmissions were organized into different categories. Some focused on simple, quick preparations that humans could complete in minutes. Others showed elaborate multi-day processes that required advanced planning and skill. They watched a human called Ryan Kim prepare something called ramen by combining dried noodles with hot liquid and various additives. The process took only minutes, but the human satisfaction was evident. Even their simplest consumption rituals produced positive responses, noted Cree 892. The humans appeared to have eliminated the monotony from basic nutrition. "This is unprecedented," said NEM 445. "We have surveyed hundreds of species, and none have developed such complex relationships with consumption." The bridge crew found themselves organizing their duty shifts around favorite human transmissions. They began to recognize individual humans and develop preferences for certain types of preparation rituals. "I want to understand how they create these chemical changes," announced NEM to 445. "Perhaps we could replicate their processes using our molecular assemblers." "Impossible," replied Vel 339. "Our assemblers create precise molecular structures. These humans use crude heating and mixing techniques, but their crude techniques produce results that create intense pleasure," argued NEM 445. "Perhaps precision is not the only factor. You're suggesting we modify our food production systems?" asked the Zix 471. The Deep Space Patrol ship Nexus 7 drifted silently through the void between stars. Commander Zix 471 sat in his command chair, watching the endless darkness through the main viewing screen. His gray skin reflected the blue light from the control panels around him. Like all Vorthik, He had large black eyes and thin arms that moved with mechanical precision. "Another empty sector, Commander," reported Communications Officer Cree 892 from her station. Her voice carried the flat tone that all Vorthic use when speaking. Emotions were considered wasteful among their species. No signs of intelligent life in this region. ZYX 471 nodded once. The Galactic Survey Fleet had been mapping this part of space for 3 years now. They found nothing but dead rocks and gas clouds. The mission was boring but necessary. The Galactic Council needed to know what lay beyond the Outer Rim territories. "Continue scanning," he ordered. "Move to the next coordinate." The ship's engines hummed quietly as they changed course. Navigator Quinn 667 worked at his station, calculating their path through space. Science Officer NEM 445 monitored the long-range sensors, searching for anything unusual. They had been traveling for 6 hours when Cree 892 suddenly straightened in her seat. Her fingers moved quickly across her control panel. "Commander, I'm detecting electromagnetic transmissions," she said, "coming from the third planet in the system ahead." Zix 471 turned to look at her. "Intelligent origin? Possibly. The signals are structured but primitive. Very low frequency compared to our technology." "Put them through the translator," ordered Zix 471. Cree 892 worked for several minutes, trying to decode the strange signals. Finally, she shook her head. "The translator cannot process these transmissions. The language patterns are too different from anything in our database." "Show me the source," said ZYX-471. The main screen changed to show a small blue and green planet orbiting a yellow star. White clouds swirled around its surface. It looked peaceful and quiet. "The signals are coming from all over the planet's surface," reported NEM 445. "There appear to be billions of transmission sources." ZYX 471 stood up from his chair. This was interesting. A planet with billions of beings sending signals into space. "Can you isolate individual transmissions?" "Working on it now," said Cree 892. Her long fingers danced across her controls. "I'm getting something. The signals contain moving images and sound. Show me." The screen flickered and suddenly displayed a strange sight. A creature with pink skin and dark hair stood in a brightly lit room. It was holding a round red object in its hands. "Welcome back to Fire and Spice," the creature said in a language none of them understood. "I'm Bobby Martinez, and today we're going to make authentic Mexican street tacos." The Vorthic crew stared at the screen in confusion. The creature called Bobby Martinez began cutting the red object with a sharp metal tool. Red juice flowed from the cuts. "What is it doing?" asked Quinn 667. "Unknown," replied NEM 445. "It appears to be destroying the red object." Bobby Martinez smiled as he worked. This confused the aliens even more. Among the Vorthic, destroying things was not a happy activity. The creature took other objects from containers around the room. Green leaves, white powder, yellow liquid. It mixed them all together with the destroyed red object. "Look at that beautiful color," Bobby Martinez said, stirring the mixture in a metal bowl. "You can smell the freshness of the tomatoes and onions." The word smell meant nothing to the Vorthic. Their species had no sense of smell. They absorbed nutrients through their skin and did not understand the concept of taste. Cree 892 leaned forward in her chair. "Commander, this is fascinating. The creature seems to be performing some kind of ritual with these objects." On the screen, Bobby Martinez took a flat, round piece of what looked like processed plant matter. He placed the mixture on top of it and folded it in half. Then he did something that shocked all the aliens watching. He put the entire thing in his mouth. "By the void," whispered NEM 445. "It's consuming the mixture." The Vorthic watched in horror as Bobby Martinez chewed and swallowed the combination of objects. But instead of showing pain or distress, the creature's face showed what appeared to be pleasure. "Me, that's delicious," Bobby Martinez said, his eyes closing briefly. "The lime really brings out the flavor of the beef. Did you see that?" asked Quinn 667. Its facial expression changed when it consumed the mixture. The creature appears to be experiencing some form of positive stimulation. Observe NEM 445. This is highly unusual behavior. Commander Zix 471 moved closer to the screen. In all his years of space travel, he had never seen anything like this. Continue monitoring these transmissions. "I want to understand what we're observing." Cree 892 nodded and began scanning through more signals from the planet. The screen showed dozens of different creatures, all performing similar rituals with various objects. Some mixed liquids over heat sources. Others combined colorful plant matter in large containers. All of them consumed their creations and displayed the same positive reactions. "There are thousands of these transmissions," reported Cree 892. "They all show the same basic activity. The creatures combine objects, apply heat or other processes, then consume the results. And they all show positive responses," added NEM 445. "This suggests the activity provides some form of benefit or pleasure." The concept of pleasure was foreign to the Vortic. Their society was built on efficiency and logic. They consumed nutrient, paced through feeding tubes that delivered exactly what their bodies needed. The idea of taking pleasure in consumption was completely alien to them. On the screen, a female creature with blonde hair was mixing white powder with liquid in a large bowl. "Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Rodriguez," she said cheerfully. "Today we're making my grandmother's famous chocolate brownies." The aliens watched as Lisa Rodriguez stirred the mixture until it became smooth and dark brown. She poured it into a square metal container and placed it inside a heated chamber. "The smell is already amazing," Lisa Rodriguez said, breathing deeply near the heated chamber. "There's nothing like the aroma of chocolate brownies baking in the oven." "She's inhaling gases from the heated mixture," observed Quinn 667. "And her expression suggests this provides positive stimulation as well." Commander Zix 471 found himself unable to look away from the screen. These creatures were unlike anything in the known galaxy. They seemed to find joy in the simplest activities. When Lisa Rodriguez removed the dark brown creation from the heated chamber, she smiled widely. "Perfect," she said, cutting the creation into squares. "Look at that rich, fudgy texture." She took a piece and bit into it. Her eyes closed, and she made a soft sound of satisfaction. "The pleasure response is even stronger with this substance," noted NEM 445. "The creature appears to be experiencing intense positive stimulation." "Change the channel," ordered Zix471. "Show me more of these transmissions." Cree 892 switched to another signal. This time, an older male creature with white hair was standing in front of a large heating device. "Today on Southern Comfort Kitchen," he said, "I'm Julia Henderson, and we're making my famous fried chicken." The aliens watched as Julia Henderson coated pieces of what appeared to be animal flesh in white powder, then submerged them in hot liquid. The flesh turned golden brown and made crackling sounds. "Listen to that sizzle," Julia Henderson said happily. "That's the sound of perfect fried chicken." "The creature is applying extreme heat to animal tissue," observed NEM 445. "But instead of viewing this as destruction, it appears to consider it a positive transformation." Hour after hour, the Vorthek crew watched these strange transmissions. They saw creatures preparing hundreds of different combinations of objects. Some were heated, others were frozen. Many were mixed with various liquids and powders. But in every case, the creatures consumed their creations and displayed obvious pleasure. "Commander," said Cree 892 after several hours of observation, "I believe we have discovered something significant. These creatures have developed a complex culture around consumption activities." ZYX 471 nodded slowly. "Indeed. And their positive responses suggest they derive actual pleasure from these activities." This is unprecedented in known galactic civilization. Should we report this to the Galactic Council? Asked Quinn 667. Not yet, replied Zix 471. We need to understand more about these creatures and their consumption rituals. Continue monitoring their transmissions. I want to learn everything we can about this phenomenon. As the ship continued its drift through space, the crew found themselves increasingly captivated by the strange world they had discovered. They had stumbled upon something that would change everything they thought they knew about civilization and consciousness. They just didn't know it yet. The emergency siren screamed across Zarian Prime at 2 in the morning, but this time they sounded different. Instead of the steady wail of training exercises, these alarms rose and fell in sharp bursts that made Amy's heart race even faster than usual. She rolled out of her bunk and grabbed her uniform, her hands shaking as she pulled on her boots. Around her, other cadets were moving with the same urgent energy, but their faces looked scared in a way Amy had never seen before. All personnel to battle stations, Commander Korthic's voice boomed through the station. This is not a drill. The Void Collective is attacking the Zarian system. All cadets report to Deployment Base 7 immediately. Amy felt like ice water had been poured into her stomach. The Void Collective had attacked mining colonies before, but they had never been bold enough to assault a major military installation. The Academy was supposed to be safe. Amy, hurry, Zara called, already dressed and helping Pip with equipment straps. They're loading everyone onto ships. Amy's mind was racing with questions, but her body moved automatically. She had learned to trust her instincts over the past months. Even when she didn't understand what was happening, Deployment Base 7 was chaos. Hundreds of cadets and instructors were running around, loading weapons and supplies onto transport ships. Amy could see fear in the aliens' faces, which made her own fear worse. If beings like Commander Korthic were worried, then this was really bad. Squad 7, over here, Instructor Velkoff called out. The old Zentari's crystal body was flashing with urgent red lights. You're being assigned to the Defensive Communication Station Beta. Amy looked at the tactical display on the wall. Communication Station Beta was a small facility on the outer edge of the system, far from the main academy. It looked isolated and unimportant. Why are we being sent there? Zara asked. Shouldn't we be helping defend the academy? The Void Collective attacks communication systems first, the instructor explained. If they destroy our ability to coordinate, the main defense becomes impossible. Your job is to keep that station operating no matter what. Amy felt a mix of disappointment and relief. Part of her wanted to be in the main battle, proving herself alongside the best cadets. But another part of her was grateful to be given a mission that seemed less dangerous. The transport ship that carried them to Communication Station Beta was small and fast. Through the window, Amy could see the lights of other ships moving through space like angry fireflies. Some were heading toward the Academy to defend it. Others were spreading out to protect smaller installations. I have been analyzing Void Collective attack patterns, Pip chimed nervously. They prefer to strike multiple targets simultaneously to divide enemy forces. Which means we might not be going to a safe, easy assignment, Hum said, the glowing form flickering with worry. Amy stared out at the stars and felt her mind starting to race. The Void Collective was known for being unpredictable, but that didn't mean they were stupid. If they were attacking communication stations, it was part of a larger plan. Communication Station Beta was built into a large asteroid that floated in empty space. It looked like a metal flower growing out of gray rock, with sensor arrays and communication dishes pointing in all directions. The station was operated by only 12 technicians and had minimal defensive weapons. Not exactly a fortress, Zara observed as their ship docked. Station Commander Nexvor, a nervous Valorian with twitching blue skin, met them at the airlock. Thank the stars you're here. We've been picking up strange signals all day, ships moving in patterns that don't make sense. Amy followed the commander to the main control room, a circular chamber filled with screens showing different parts of the star system. She could see the locations of friendly ships, enemy vessels, and neutral traffic all displayed in different colors. Her eyes immediately went to the enemy ship positions. Most of the Void Collective fleet was attacking the Academy, just as expected. But some ships were moving in ways that seemed random and pointless. "Amy, you have that look," Zara said. "What are you seeing?" Amy pointed at the display. "Look at these 3 ships here. They're not heading for any important targets. They're just wandering around." "Perhaps they are lost," Pip suggested. "Or perhaps they're doing something we don't understand yet," Amy said, her mind jumping from possibility to possibility. Before anyone could respond, alarms started blaring throughout the station. "Enemy ships approaching," one of the technicians announced. "3 vessels moving fast." Amy looked at the tactical display and felt her stomach drop. The 3 wandering ships weren't wandering anymore. They were heading straight for Communication Station Beta. "How long until they arrive?" Commander NextVOR asked. 12 minutes, the technician replied. Amy felt her hyperactive energy building. 12 minutes wasn't enough time to call for help. The nearest friendly ships were busy defending other targets. Communication Station Beta had to defend itself. "What weapons do we have?" Zara asked. 2 defensive laser cannons and a shield. "Generator," the commander replied. "But the shields won't hold against 3 ships for very long." Amy's mind was processing information faster than usual, looking for patterns and connections. The attacking ships were smaller than the ones assaulting the Academy. That meant they were faster but less heavily armed. They were probably planning to disable the station quickly and move on. "They'll target the communication arrays first," Amy said suddenly. "If they destroy those, the station becomes useless." "Obviously," Commander NextVO replied. "We'll use the defensive cannons to protect." "The arrays." "No," Amy said, her words coming out fast as her thoughts raced. "That's what they expect us to do. We need to do something else." "Such as what?" the commander asked. Amy stared at the tactical display, her mind jumping between different ideas. The attacking ships would come in fast, hit the communication equipment, and leave. It was a simple plan that would work unless they did something unexpected. "What if we make them think we're already destroyed?" Amy asked. Everyone looked at her like she was crazy. "Explain," Zara said. Amy's hands were moving as she talked, gesturing at the screens and displays. "Look, they want to destroy our communication equipment. But what if we shut it down ourselves, right before they attack? Make it look like the station is already dead." "That's insane," Commander NextVOR said. "If we shut down communications, we can't call for help or coordinate with other stations. But if they think we're already destroyed, they might not waste time attacking us," Amy continued. "They'll move on to other targets." "And if they don't fall for it," asked. "Then we turn everything back on and fight," Amy said. "But at least we'll have surprised them." Pip's crystal body chimed with rapid calculations. "The probability of success is difficult to determine. The plan depends entirely on enemy psychology, which is exactly why it might work," Zara said, understanding Amy's logic. "The Void Collective thinks they know how military minds work. They don't expect us to voluntarily destroy our own capability." Commander NextVOR looked uncertain. "This goes against all military doctrine. We're supposed to defend our position, not abandon it. Sometimes the best defense is to make the enemy think there's nothing worth attacking." Amy said the commander stared at the approaching enemy ships on the display. They would arrive in 8 minutes. There wasn't time for long debates or careful planning. "Do it," he said finally. "Shut down all communications and power down everything except life support." The technicians began turning off systems one by one. The lights dimmed, the screens went dark, and the constant hum of electronics faded to silence. "Communication station," Beta went from a vital military installation to what looked like a dead piece of space. Junk.Amy watched the enemy ships on the one screen they had kept active for monitoring. The three vessels approached the station and slowed down, their sensors scanning the dark asteroid. "They're not attacking," one of the technicians whispered. "Wait," Amy said, her eyes glued to the display. "They're still deciding." For 5 long minutes, the enemy ships circled the station. Amy could imagine the pirates inside, trying to figure out if the station was really dead, or if it was some kind of trap. Finally, the ships turned away and headed toward their next target. "They bought it," Zara said with relief. "Now what?" "Commander." Next VORF, Amy's mind was already working on the next problem. "Now we become ghosts. We stay dark until the main battle is over, but we keep watching and listening. Maybe we can help in ways the enemy won't expect." For the next 4 hours, Communication Station Beta operated in complete silence. They monitored enemy communications, tracked ship movements, and gathered intelligence without transmitting anything that would reveal their position. Amy's hyperactive mind was perfect for this kind of work. She could process multiple information streams simultaneously, noticing patterns in enemy behavior that others miss. Her inability to focus on one thing became an ability to focus on everything. "Amy," Pip chimed quietly, "I am detecting something unusual in the enemy communication patterns." Amy looked at the data Pip was showing her. The Void Collective ships were using a complex system of coded messages, but there was something wrong with the timing. They're not just coordinating attacks, Amy realized. They're counting something. Look at these number sequences.